I mean, if you compare life in Canada to the United States, it certainly seems a little more isolated, a little more barren, a little less. The reality of life in Canada is it's very robust, very healthy. It's subtle. Subtlety is probably the biggest word that I can use to describe life in Nova Scotia or the Maritimes in general. The majority of people here still get their hands dirty, you know, still haul their own wood, and they're appreciative of nature trails. They're out on the beaches. They're got a place at the lake, you know, they're camping and fishing, and so I think most Maritimers feel a real kinship with being outdoors. Disc golf just fits every policy, every practical, you know, pragmatic thing about Maritimers. They just don't know it yet.
Ben Smith, he is a character. I've never met anyone like him.
He's good energy, he's high energy, and he gets things done.
He's kind of the driver for disc golf in the Maritimes in a lot of ways. He's responsible for most of the courses that they have in the ground.
He loves it so much that for him it maybe doesn't even feel like work, because that's what he loves to do.
You gotta meet him. You just gotta meet him.
I always love the question, hey, you know, what is it? Why isn't disc golf bigger? What can we do to grow it? And there's no simple solution to it. It's so many layers and so many things. Some work, some don't. Sometimes you run an event and only 3 people show up, and it turns out that one of those people build a course 2 years later, you know? And so it's not always more is better, it's quality over quantity. I was a part of the group that founded an organization in the Maritimes called the MDGA, Maritime Disc Golf Association. It's a good 5 years where we've been into this. We've run probably 30, 40 PDGA events and a multitude of other events. I do teach about 40 to 80 days a year teaching the game. I've built 20 plus courses at this juncture. And each one of them, there is people who have supported me and helped me and are behind me, and I've done it in conjunction with. So right now, I just feel like I've just been a cog in a wheel that keeps turning, and every day we just try to add a little more and a little more and a little more.
We're here at the 2019 Canadian National Disc Golf Championships in beautiful Prince Edward Island. We've got over 290 players from 7 countries, and this is the biggest PDJ event ever in Canada.
Canadian Nationals is a great A tier. I've played it twice up there in Prince Edward Island. You know, every place has its own unique people, obviously, but I think the people in PEI are really, really friendly. The staff works really hard. And obviously we have some beautiful courses to play as well.
This course here at Hillcrest Farm in Bonshaw, PEI is the best, if not one of the best courses in Canada.
It's just on a beautiful piece of property, rolling hills, through a dense pine forest.
The elevation was very present. There's lots of woods, but there's also some shots that are open that you can see your disc fly the whole way down the fairway.
really polished, and has some really fair and difficult challenges. So I find it to be a really fun course to play and a beautiful course.
It's disc golf paradise. I think it's hole 11 that runs around this little creek. It's a short little ace run par 3. You could like put that in a video game and it would look just ideal for that. That's always what I appreciate most about courses, is if it looks cool. No matter how hard it plays, if it looks nice, then I always seem to enjoy it more.
The installation of this course must have inspired Charlie, who's one of the members of the family who owns the land over in Middleton called the Huckett course, which is the other course that the players at this event are competing on.
So when I designed my course, I'd only played this course originally. So that was a massive inspiration. Even getting into disc golf, I never even heard of disc golf before I played here.
You know, the bottom line is we are just so fortunate to have people like this in PEI who are into the sport so much that they dedicate large swaths of private land to the installation of quality disc golf courses.
Anywhere we can get more courses and more participation and have disc golf be in the public consciousness in more places, that's just going to help our sport be the global thing that we all want it to be. And I think that's the ultimate goal for all of us, is to grow the sport and make it as global and share the joy that we get from playing the game in as many places as we can.
I've built a course on my own property maybe 3-4 years ago, somewhere around that area. Just the fact that I can walk out of my door and slip on my shoes when I want to and play around a disc golf, man, there's just no substitute to it. I always felt like I still want to get better at this game, and so I built a course that did not play to my strengths. Nice to get that one on camera. I also built it so that, whether my kids want to play or not, they can still walk around or be on the property. One of my kids has a modest to no interest in sport, and that doesn't bother me in the least. My daughter, she's a little more active in sport and seems to gravitate towards it more. And there's times where she's grabbing the disc and chomping at the bit to play, and then there's other times where she'd just rather catch frogs. And in both scenarios, I'm absolutely pleased and happy to see them be out there. Anytime you get to share an experience of joy with the people you love is just, that doubles the joy. Every day that we're back here, living here, I'm thankful that this is the place we chose to call home. There is a culture of hockey in Canada that I certainly grew up with. And there's kind of an unwritten rule that if a guy or a girl wants to keep playing, there's always a spot on the ice for them, and there's always a game. And there is something about that I absolutely love. So disc golf fits that mold like tenfold. We try to run a fundraiser about every 3 weeks, and if you win your division, you get your name put in a hat, and before nationals, we draw out 4 or 5 names, and those people get the chance to play with a pro.
This year I was lucky that I actually played a full round with a pro. It was quite an experience just playing with those pros, really teach me, and then that way I could really see what I can do eventually in the sport. It's just amazing seeing people that lives by doing this sport. I can't right now, I'm not that good, but still.
It's cool to just get to know people one-on-one and hear their stories. I mean, we see people all the time and we shake their hand and we say hello, but to actually get to know people.
A young lady from Quebec got to play with Paige Pierce, and for her, she had been watching Paige for years. And to have her say, Paige say, look, this is a thing you can do. You can hold your disc a little different, or you can make this approach, or hey, your game's pretty strong at this.
If you start further on this pad, it actually opens up the gap a little bit more.
Oh no. Woo.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that a 3?
Yeah. I had a hard time all week with my foot.
Or Zoe and Dustin to give one-on-one lessons almost and tips and encouragement that like, it can't be overstated how far that carries people.
Bam. Good job. Way to take your time on those shorties. Can't stress enough how important that is.
First, I want to mention the signed disc. It was just one of my favorite discs, and I got both of their autographs on it. I am going to throw it a little bit. So I got a really good pointer today about good miss, bad miss when you're taking a line.
So you guys know about the good misses and the bad misses? The best way to describe it off of any tee pad is where's the most air real estate? Is that the fairway? And then what are the misses? So you guys picked the most airspace here, and the good miss was the hyzer that you were actually trying to already go for. That was the great miss. Great shot, Bruce, just going up the way. You're golfing this little perfect. I'm digging it.
It's a great way for the pros to give back to the local community, because otherwise we might not get that interaction.
At the end of the day, I'm just another human throwing the disc. So I think it's really exciting for a lot of people, especially like Jessica, who I got to play with, to outscore me on a hole. Or, if I hit a tree and she passes me by 200 feet, that makes her day.
It's something that they're going to remember for a long time. So I love the idea, and we're all in this together. It's not the pros and the AMs, and we're different people. I mean, we're the same people. Everything that we get, it's all within this like family of disc golf.
It's fun, and it's another way to contribute. And it's also another way for the pros to realize that they are appreciated. So to know that there's people up here that care and that people want to contribute to that is just, I think it's a great full circle that works well for everybody.
Sweet. Nice playing with you guys. That was fun.
So I grew up playing golf, and so PEI has always been known as a golf, quote-unquote, ball golf destination. I think it's becoming more well-known as well as a disc golf destination, which is really cool. A lot of times we get forgotten about. A lot of people say East or Eastern Canada, and they mean Toronto. There's all this other stuff on the other side of Ontario, and so it's cool to bring people from the US. It's cool to bring the top disc golfers in the world. Anytime Paul Macbeth is on a card, people are going to watch, and so they're going to see the courses that we have in PEI. They're going to hear more about the Maritimes and start thinking, hey, Canada's not this frozen tundra. There's actually people doing some cool stuff up there.
I think that the Canadian scene is definitely growing. Based on 2018 to 2019, just me attending this one event, there was all the same faces that I saw in 2018, plus a lot more.
Oh, having the pros come is definitely inspiring more people to play. I mean, I know what I felt like the first time I watched Paul throw, or the first time I saw Nate take a forehand, or the first time that I saw, Paige run a 50-foot putt with death behind her. It's thrilling. I know there were kids out there this year. I know there was families out there from the island and the Maritimes who came and watched every day, and we're thrilled to see that. And those people, to have a direct conduit to seeing the game at the highest level, it's like, it's hard to contextualize and to put into words, because for so long, disc golf in Canada, if you could get one pro to maybe come up to your event as they were swinging through from one place to another, it was the biggest thing in the world for your club. And so now all of our clubs have direct access to those players.
And that's really what it's all about, is we're not out here trying to beat Paul Macbeth. We're out here watching Paul Macbeth saying, we want you to see what you can do to this course. We want you to set the course record, do all these amazing things. Meanwhile, we're playing and trying to do our best for our abilities.
It's way different than going to a course that you go to every year and every top player in the world goes to every year. Not that those people aren't appreciative, but they're used to it, and they've worked hard to have those tour stops. So when it's these more fringe tournaments that are just kind of trying to get started, those people are noticeably more excited and more accommodating than they would be otherwise.
Yeah, I definitely feel a lot more appreciation when you go to, a spot that they're not necessarily expecting you to be at. People in smaller communities are just so excited to show you their beautiful home. And so I think that translates to everybody having a good time, and it makes it a destination you definitely want to go to.
Hello and welcome to Champs vs. Chumps, and I am Nate Sexton. I'll be your host today. We are in Middleton, Prince Edward Island at the Huckett Disc Golf Course. We've got some veteran chumps over here. Let's take a look. Canada's finest.
Well, I'm a huge believer that you should kill your idols, to speak. For us to be able to play with those people and to see that they're down to earth and they fit so much of the maritime mold and that they're just people is great.
Always a fun time, and up there especially, you can work in a few maple syrup jokes, so those are freebies. And I had a great time. Those guys they're fun, they get rowdy.
We had a huge crowd. Everyone was super excited. We had some people wearing Canadian flags as a cape and, definitely cheering on the Canadian Chumps.
It's funny, we had moments last year that are gonna live on in infamy.
Like I said, these are veterans. Many of these players have been playing terribly for years, even decades. So these guys are not afraid of anything. No bogey, no double bogey. They have seen it all. It is bad, and they're gonna show you it right now.
Oh no, choppy.
It's also funny to see the champs miss sometimes. So, they're just human.
You can hear the rumblings here. This is the first time the chumps, lay chumps, have been able to take a stroke back. So the drama we asked for, we got it.
I think the disc golf media has grown a lot in the last few years. We're huge backers of Central Coast. We think the things that they're doing are great, and it just feels like one more part of the disc golf family that we get to be a part of.
I hope people enjoy it. I think it's a fun thing for them to be able to participate in all that video production stuff. There will have been a lot of fans of Champs vs. Chumps, and I think for them to get a chance to be featured in that and have their course featured and their players featured is just a really exciting thing for their community.
It's like small but big at the same time. Like there's only like 30 or 40 people around us, but it just feels like we're all hyped up, we're all playing for the cameras, for the show, and whenever the chumps win a hole, and it's like, I'm happy for them. If I would get the chance to play Tiger Woods on a golf course, then I'd pay for that, and if I would win, then it would make my year, so I hope we can create feelings like that for people.
That felt good.
We here at Central Coast really appreciate you guys joining us. Champs vs. Chumps 11. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you guys Champs vs. Chumps 12. Who knows where it's going to be.
PEI is on the frontier of North America. It's several hundred miles from the Maine border, and it's 10, 12 years ago, there was no disc golf here. So this was the disc golf wilderness.
I know that Canada is so big that it's really hard sometimes to identify with someone who grew up in the North or someone who grew up in the West with someone who grew up in the Far East. But I know from the last handful of national events that I've gone to, when we're there, we're just 150 or 200 or 300 disc golfers who are all together, and you high-five each other, and there is a great bond that, like, look, we're here together and we made it. It has made a huge difference in Canada, if for no other reason than Canadian disc golfers from coast to coast to coast got together.
Seems like the disc golf family, it doesn't really change much throughout the countries. The disc golf family is always this super welcoming family, and you instantly just feel like part of it, like so quick. You just walk up to a course and you meet people, and then suddenly you're in a club and suddenly you're addicted.
From where we are in PEI to Vancouver, our West Coast big city, is 3,500 miles, and yet we've got 30 or 40 players here this weekend all the way from BC. And it brings the country together, gives us a sense of unity, which is, sometimes sorely lacking in the world these days.
And I think they are so professional out in Canada, and really we're seeing more professionalism all across the world in disc golf. So I think it's super important to continue that and show strength in numbers and show how many people are dedicated to this sport and how it's changing all of our lives.
I think for the vast majority of people who get to come to this event, they're appreciative because the island buys in, the Maritimes buy in, the fans buy in, the players buy in, and then it's just this thing where we're all together. And certainly this year was not the smoothest event that I've ever run.
We knew it was coming. That was pretty much the talk of the tournament, really, was that this hurricane was coming and that we might have to play in it.
All week we hoped and crossed our fingers and played it off like Maritimers do, that it won't be that bad. But as Thursday started to approach, the projection was post 2:30 in the afternoon, winds would pick up, rains would increase, and things would get real.
When the hurricane hit, a lot of the disc golfers were in these small cottages, and they didn't sleep at night.
Our house was kind of starting to break. They had to come in there and put some boards to keep the structure of the windows intact. It was actually a little bit nerve-wracking. We were sitting there in the dark playing some games. It was really loud. You saw some plywood blowing out into the ocean, some gutters coming off houses. It was crazy. I have not experienced wind like that many times.
Sustained winds of over 100 kilometers an hour or 60 miles per hour on Saturday night, and a massive load of, I think, 98 mil of rain in some parts. Huckett was cringeworthy.
It's always awesome to see the raw power of Mother Nature, but not kind of what she did to my course. It was in great shape, and she probably ripped down over 100 plus trees, big maples all over the place. Made it pretty well unplayable.
Hillcrest fared a little better. There was closer to 30 or 40 trees down, some not significant, a good dozen or 20 that were. It definitely felt partially overwhelming.
And before the tournament started at 6 a.m., they went out there and cleared all the damage. And by the time we got out at the course, it was fixed. I mean, you couldn't even hardly tell if there wasn't tree shavings on the fairway.
We had an army of volunteers who got it done, and I've never been more proud to be a Maritimer.
The work that they did in a short amount of time, I think they did, as well as anyone could have, given the conditions that we were in.
It's excruciating because we all know that people travel to play these events, people save up for the whole year, people look forward, they mark it on their calendar, this is their thing, and we get that. And the overall feeling was we made the event go, and it happened, and it's a real credit to both the families who own the courses and to all the people who selflessly came out and volunteered. Not to toot our own horn, but it's a feather in our cap to say, we can even make an event work in a hurricane. And so there you go. So I don't know how that exactly ties in, but I know that's got to be something.
So one of the opportunities that I have as an ambassador is the Stewardship Award, and typically it's presented to somebody who puts a lot of time into one disc golf course, but Ben Smith has done a lot more than that. He's done a lot of courses. He's the Johnny Appleseed of the Maritimes for disc golf. As I've traveled, I've met a lot of people, and when I started thinking about who would be deserving of this award, it was the first name that came to mind.
And he's the reason that we're all here today. He has driven miles and miles and hours just above the shit out of pros, so they will be here this weekend.
Would you ever gone up to Canada without Ben?
No. He was messaging all the touring pros years and years ago, before this Prince Edward Island Canadian Championships was even a big thing.
He appeals to everybody, I think. He can find common ground with any human he interacts with, and that's something I really admire about him.
I moved back to the Maritimes in 2005 or something like that from BC, and I got back here and there was nothing. There was no disc golf, nobody had ever heard of the game. I never thought to hey, maybe I should just, start a disc golf course or start a league or convince all my friends. I just sort of stopped playing for a while. And my wife handed me a newspaper and it said, disc golf comes to Amherst, which was the town 8 miles away. And I freaked out and said, well, excellent, I'm going. We played 4 holes, I think, and it was a total blizzard. And we ended up just eating pizza in the back of the thing, but I met Ben that day, and that changed everything for me. You couldn't ask for a better friend, couldn't ask for a better steward of this game. Everything he does for anybody in this room. If there's a person who hasn't met Ben, you really should. I mean, I know he looks like a weird homeless guy, but he smells good, he's a nice guy. Everybody, a round of applause for Ben Smith.
Yeah, you're not wrong to say that I'm not a huge fan of being publicly thanked. I would do this regardless. You don't always realize that a TD or a builder of the game is making sacrifices. But at the same time, I also feel compelled to do this, and I love it.
And I want to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart, because I would have just been a weirdo with these 2 guys playing disc golf here, but you show up and it makes me less raging. So, kudos to you. Thank you.
He's like this father figure that wants the best for everybody, but he's also childlike and can have fun. He's unlike anybody I've met, for real.
It's just really been such a pleasure of hanging out with him and enjoying everything he did for us. I mean, Ben gets stuff done, and you need always to get stuff done, you need someone that gets stuff done.
I am internally grateful to be recognized, and I am very thankful, but I also want to know that in that conversation, it should always be said that I'm not an island, I didn't do it alone, and there's always people who've pushed me, helped me, contributed, and I just want to make sure that those people are always recognized too.
Long and the short of it is, thank you from Don, Duncan, all the people from Innova who've made this, Brian, everybody behind the scenes. We couldn't be more happy and more thankful that you're here, so eat, drink, and be merry, and thank you all very much.
And so to bring people together into this big event, we can then go back and become the ambassadors for each of our own, individual leagues and cities and communities, because really, it's not going to take one person. It's going to take one person in each single city. We need more Ben Smiths everywhere, really.
There's a beautiful thing about sport in general that embodies a lot of stuff that is inclusive, and disc golf is almost the ultimate embodiment of that. That course is there, free to play, accessible, and the game is available to you. If you can hit that line, then do it, and if not, then look for another line that you can hit.
The biggest impact I've seen individuals have is when they get together and they go teach at an elementary school and they teach a class of 100 kids. Because if you teach a class of 100 kids and 5 or 10 of them latch onto it, you don't have to be a pro to go and teach disc golf or let people know how amazing it is.
Some of the things that we can do to actually grow the sport instead of just saying that, I think it would help, first of all, for those guys to share it with the women in their lives. I mean, that's the first step for sure, is getting discs in your sister's and your girlfriend and your daughter's hands. When my dad hands me a disc at first growing up and they start walking down the fairway in front of you, that's not gonna make you wanna come back. But the second that they started showing me support and encouragement and cheering on my good shots and waiting for me when I would have a bad shot, that is how you keep them coming back. Share the Jomez videos. Share your favorite moments that mean something to you and tell a story about why. Don't just post a photo of a disc. Tell them why disc golf has changed your life.
Making a nice cheap and easy way for people to recreate. It's really a no-lose situation.
What are you waiting for? Things are not gonna just happen because that's not how it works. If you love it, just do what you love and things will work out and you'll be happy. Getting stuff done feels good. It feels way better than doing nothing. And I've done both. And I can tell you for a fact that getting up and doing something feels good.
You know, maybe it would get stagnant for some people, but for me, it stayed strong. It kept being pleasurable, and the more I gave to it, the more it gave back to me, and you know, which may be a template for all of sport, but yeah, for disc golf, I don't know. It's just living the dream.